Imagine spending your entire life smiling for the cameras while carrying heartbreak no one ever sees. That's the story of Princess Caroline of Monaco, a woman millions thought they understood, but very few actually did. She came into the world on January 23, 1957, inside a palace that looked like a dream from the outside. But from her very first breath, pressure surrounded her. Monaco was tiny, glamorous, and quietly terrified. Old agreements with France meant that if the Grimaldi family line died out, independence itself could vanish. One baby carried the weight of an entire nation's future. Sounds like an impossible start, doesn't it? Every detail of her arrival was treated like a state matter. The exact birth time was recorded. Newspapers across Europe debated its significance. Palace officials moved with the urgency of diplomats, not new parents. And somewhere inside all that ceremony, a little girl began growing up. Her father, Prince Rainier, spent most of his energy turning Monaco into a global symbol of luxury. Casinos, Formula One, glamorous galas, wealthy visitors pouring in from every corner of the world. Meanwhile, her mother, the Grace Kelly, had traded Hollywood stardom for a life locked inside royal rules and relentless public expectation. Reports from that time describe Grace slipping away to private cinema rooms inside the palace, watching her old films alone. One of America's most beloved actresses, quietly mourning the freedom she gave up. That image says everything. And this is the world Caroline grew up in. But here's where it gets interesting, because the reality inside those palace walls looked nothing like the fairy tale outside. Meals happened separately. Nannies managed daily life. Formal dining rooms existed for guests, not family. Emotional warmth often came second to duty and appearance. Then in 1958, her brother Albert was born, and overnight, the entire focus of succession shifted away from Caroline. Traditions favored male heirs. Palace attention followed. One day she was central to Monaco's future. The next, expectations quietly changed direction. She wasn't forgotten, she was simply repositioned. Less future ruler. More royal daughter, expected to embody elegance, represent the family with grace, and never step out of line. By the time her younger sister Stephanie arrived in 1965, Caroline was already 8 years old and absorbing the unspoken rules of what royal life actually demanded. Every public appearance was studied. Every outfit sparked conversation. Every expression was analyzed. But here's what most people missed entirely. Beneath all that glamour lived a genuinely sharp mind. Caroline excelled academically, especially in philosophy, psychology, and biology. She spoke multiple languages. She engaged seriously with literature and ideas. And almost nobody paid attention, because nightclub photographs sold more magazines than academic achievements ever could. The cameras loved the glamour. They had no interest in the intelligence. By her early 20s, her social life in Paris had made her an international fixture. Clubs, aristocrats, celebrities, wealthy socialites, every night out became a headline. But behind that image of a carefree royal enjoying her freedom was someone caught between two worlds that kept pulling in opposite directions. Royal duty demanded restraint. Youth demanded something real. And the comparisons to her mother never stopped. Every hairstyle, every dress, every relationship measured against one of Hollywood's most iconic women. Exhausting doesn't even begin to cover it. Then came 1978, and what looked like a fairy tale beginning that was already quietly falling apart. At 21, Caroline married Philippe Junot, a French businessman nearly 2 decades older, with a reputation built on nightlife, luxury parties, and romantic headlines that followed him everywhere. Whispers started long before the ceremony. Close circles around Monaco reportedly felt uneasy. Grace Kelly herself was said to feel deep concern, a mother sensing something the cameras refused to capture. But preparations continued. Monaco transformed into a stage. Luxury cars, European aristocrats, Hollywood names, royal guests, cameras packed into every corner. The world watched a wedding. Nobody was watching the doubt. And then came the honeymoon, and reality arrived far faster than anyone expected. Intimate photographs reportedly reached tabloids after a photographer gained access during private moments. For a 21-year-old already living under relentless public attention, the humiliation reportedly cut deep. The one space that should have been protected, gone. That kind of violation changes something. Trust becomes harder. Privacy starts feeling like a myth. Less than 2 years after one of Europe's most celebrated royal weddings, separation became official. By October 1980, the fairy tale was over. And the world, unsurprisingly, wanted every detail. But here's what nobody tells you about heartbreak at this scale. It doesn't end when the headlines move on. It stays. It reshapes how you see the world, how you trust people, how carefully you let anyone get close again. Then came Stefano. Stefano Casiraghi was Italian, warm, adventurous, and steady in a way Caroline had rarely experienced. Their relationship grew quietly, away from the noise. He had his own identity, businessman, sportsman, someone who didn't need the Grimaldi name to define him. When they married civilly on December 29, 1983, something genuinely different had arrived. 3 children followed: Andrea, Charlotte, and Pierre. People close to the family described it as the rare thing, an actual love story. For the first time in a long time, life had settled into something resembling peace. But this story never stays peaceful for long. On October 3, 1990, Stefano died in a speedboat accident off the coast of Monaco. He was 30 years old. Caroline had already lost her mother Grace in a car accident back in 1982. Now she was a widow, alone with 3 young children, grieving again in a way that cameras couldn't capture and words couldn't fully explain. She withdrew. A quiet village in France. Distance from the public eye. Those who saw her during that period described a woman completely transformed by sorrow, carrying something heavy and private and utterly devastating. Grief that never needed to announce itself because it was visible in everything. What happened next surprised many people. She came back, not with drama or grand statements, but quietly, steadily, channeling that grief into something useful. Humanitarian work. Children's causes. Education. Vulnerable communities. The Princess Grace Foundation, honoring her mother by lifting emerging artists. The Monte Carlo Philharmonic Orchestra. The Monte Carlo Opera. One by one, she built a public identity that had nothing to do with heartbreak and everything to do with purpose. In 1999, she married Prince Ernst August of Hanover, a relationship that brought its own complications, periods of separation, moments of reconciliation, the difficult work of blending 2 very different royal worlds. Nothing simple. Nothing perfect. But then, nothing in her life ever really was. Her children grew into their own. Andrea, Charlotte, and Pierre each carved out public roles of their own, carrying the Grimaldi name into a new generation while building identities that felt genuinely their own. Caroline watched that happen from a position she had earned quietly, over decades, through loss and survival and consistent, unglamorous effort. Here is what's easy to miss when you only see the photographs. A woman raised under impossible expectations, compared endlessly to an iconic mother, thrust into a disastrous early marriage before she had any real experience of adult life, humiliated publicly, widowed young, and still showing up. Still working. Still representing something. Still carrying herself with a dignity that didn't come from palaces or diamonds or designer gowns. It came from everything she survived that nobody ever fully saw. At 69, Princess Caroline of Monaco remains one of the most quietly remarkable figures connected to European royalty. Not because the story was beautiful. Often it wasn't. But because behind every polished appearance, every official event, every carefully composed public smile, there was a real woman navigating real loss, in front of the entire world, without ever letting the cameras see her break. And maybe that's the most honest fairy tale of all. Not the one where everything turns out perfect. The one where someone keeps going anyway.